How would you define success for TikTok? Hey everyone, welcome back to another Exponent product management mock interview. My name's Kevin Wei, and on today's show we have David. So before we get started with today's mock interview, David, can you just tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is David Kossnick. Thanks for having me. I'm currently a product manager at Coda, which is an all-in-one document where you can type and have tables and data in your team. Before that, I started my own company in the gaming space. And prior to that, I was a product manager at Google and YouTube.
Awesome, it's great to have you. So for today's question, I'd like to ask an execution or metric style question. These are typically asked to see how you would define metrics or define success. So for today's question, how would you define success for TikTok?
Great question. Do you mind if I screen share actually, since we don't have a physical whiteboard to work on together?
Yeah,
Just
feel free.
have a document. Okay, thanks. Of course, it has to be a Coda document because I work at Coda. It's so great. So the question was how should TikTok measure success?
Yes, yep, that's the question.
Cool. And do you mind if I just look up? I'm curious how TikTok defines success for themselves today. Do you mind if I just look at their site?
Yeah, sure. We can take a quick look, but I'm really curious just to think about what your intuition might be.
Cool.
And to give you some background too, it's a short form video app, sort of like YouTube, but just shorter form. The videos are a few seconds long. There's a feed with recommended videos, and we can work off of these assumptions.
Very cool. Yeah, I've used TikTok a bunch, but it's always fun to see the description in people's own voice. So they describe it as the leading destination for short form mobile video. Our mission is to inspire creativity and bring joy. So this first part is sort of describing the state of the business today. Maybe this shouldn't be part of how they measure success. Like maybe they in the future want to look beyond mobile video or beyond video. Maybe they want to have images or text or other forms of media as well. So I'm just going to ignore this as a forward-looking statement and see that more descriptive as kind of where we're at. And so their mission is to inspire creativity and bring joy. I think the mission is super helpful because it should drive and connect with the core metrics. A lot of people talk about a North Star metric as the one key metric to focus the company around, that all the initiatives should drive up into and try to move. So I'm going to focus on that. What's the single metric I would pick? In reality, of course, every team will have more actionable direct metrics that connect back to their actual work, but they should ladder up. So let's see, our mission is to inspire creativity and bring joy. I'm just going to make a quick table here to have a few metric options that we can talk through. So I'm just going to make this column metric. I can add a few as we're talking through it. Maybe a description of what that means. Some comparables, if there are other companies. And maybe we'll add some more as we get into this. So breaking down this mission even more, inspiring creativity and bringing joy. There's sort of two components there that feel connected but distinct. Inspiring creativity to me implies taking action. You know, inspiration is when people see something and then they do something. And so you could have a metric around actions. So an action could be, liking or sharing, following, remixing, any sort of explicit action showing that, hey, you cared enough about this content, it drove you to do something, it inspired you. There's also the piece around bringing joy. How would you measure joy? There's a few ways we could try to get at that. One is through qualitative metrics like a net promoter score. A net promoter score is often a survey methodology where people say how likely they are to recommend a service to a friend. It's really helpful to get a sense of how people feel about things, which metrics might not show, but it's often very hard to scale up and get this at a sort of daily or super granular level. That reminds me, let me add a little checkbox here to skip this option. So I would definitely have some sort of net promoter score as a qualitative quant signal, but it would be hard to make that the single goal in my mind. So that might be a good secondary metric. So what else can we do in terms of bring joy? You can imagine something that's around time spent. So how long are you actually watching videos? So sort of minutes in the app. A comparable for this could be YouTube or TV. Average American spends many hours a day on TV. And so the argument for this is, well, we're bringing joy. People are voting with their feet. And so if you're enjoying it, you're still watching it. Clearly, by spending more time, you're enjoying it. But maybe I'll add another column here for sort of risks. The challenge with time spent is how high quality is the time. So if we're shooting for joy as our goal, you can imagine spending a lot of time, but not really enjoying it. It's sort of, low quality content or just not connecting with it. Some people might feel this way about watching TV sometimes. You have it on in the background, you don't really care about it. Cool, I'm just gonna keep going for a bit. Does this make sense so far? Any thoughts or questions? Otherwise, I'll keep having some options getting spelled out before we converge on one.
Yeah, this is a good start. I'll just challenge you to maybe come up with one or two more metric options.
Cool, yeah, sounds good. So maybe another version of voting with your feet beyond time spent is frequency. Actually thinking about frequency a little more, there might be two versions of frequency. So one is daily active users. So did you come today? And another might be number of sessions, sessions per day. So the distinction between these is, daily active users is a sort of toothbrush test. You would get a point if you came for 10 seconds in the morning. That's equally valuable as someone who came for 10 hours all day long. And I think the case for this, let's say, let's take this from the viewer's perspective first, maybe on like what the benefit is of this metric. The case for this for daily active users is like, this is really habit forming. So it's something you connect with. So if you come back every day, regardless of how long it is, it's clearly something that is inspiring you to action of coming back. It's something you care enough to go to do consistently. And then the fifth option here, which is sessions per day, is a sort of variation on daily active users. It could be that I check in 3 times a day. That would be 3 times more valuable. And this one, so sort of how many unique times you open the app each day. A comparable for this one might be Twitter, where Twitter is all about freshness. And so you come back to see exactly what's happening or trending right now. I think a benefit of this one is you really have a sort of wired in habit, but it also might be hard if you're optimizing for this to get as wide a base. So if we pick this, will we have a lower base? Can we reasonably expect to target many billions of people coming many times a day? Whereas for DAUs, I could imagine maybe it's easier to hit 1 billion users who come once a day. And actually thinking about these a bit, there's sort of a sliding scale between these, or with frequency in general. Obviously,
So actually, let me ask you a question here. So
Yeah.
when it comes to TikTok, can you spell out who the different users are?
Yeah, great question. I think there's a range of different users. We could try to flesh this out here as well. User types. One way you could cut it is by demographic. Another is by usage pattern. There's a lot of different permutations for this. So maybe I'll just add a quick type here. So this is a sort of demographic or usage. Let's just call it behavior. My perception is TikTok very much came up through sort of teens, which is a demographic. Also the common usage behavior is from my perception, not having seen the metrics. Obviously, I'd want to clarify this with real data, but is lots of short sessions. And so you have behavior where you're looking for something funny or to pass the time, or you have a topic you're interested in. I think a related but slightly different behavior is where you follow someone. And so I come for a creator. And so it might be I found them on TikTok or I found them elsewhere. They just make amazing content. They're like a YouTube star to me, or a movie star. They're the TikTok star. And this is the place I go to get updates about them, which is different than being interested in a topic like knitting or baking and just looking to find cool content around that, or comedy.
So zooming out, thinking a little bit more broadly, I think when we talk about people on TikTok, there's people who are coming to consume content, there's people who are coming to create content, and maybe there's people who are coming to advertise, like businesses, right? So when it comes to these sort of broader categories, I think like the what you've done here in this table is great, but I'm wondering if you think more broadly, who should we really be focusing on first, and how that might influence which North Star metric you might pick?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think those are the three right audiences. There's sort of an implied fourth audience, which is TikTok itself, which might benefit differently depending on these metrics. I think the viewer and the creator really go hand in hand. Without content people are making on the platform, what is there to view? I think traditionally at a product like TikTok, we're more comfortable with advertiser being a lagging indicator, where if consumption and growth is strong, there'll be eyeballs, there'll be ways to monetize those eyeballs. And so I would really think about this loop working for both and not wanting to pick one at the expense of the other. Maybe to make it concrete, we could talk about two metrics of time spent and sessions per day as sort of extreme differing points in the spectrum. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, or maybe you can list out some metric options for creators and for viewers, and then we can go from there.
I see. So you're saying if we wanted to optimize for creators, what would the metric be?
Yeah, or for viewers. It's really up to you. You're the PM, and I'm wondering how you might justify that.
Gotcha. Yeah, so maybe to focus on the viewer one to start, we talked about a few different options here, from actions to time spent, DAU, sessions, and frequency. I'm going to say for now, let's skip actions. I think it's the one it's sort of second order removed from the actual core viewing experience of watching and consuming content. So for viewers, first, we're going to focus on time spent, DAU, or sessions per day. And I'll just drill into time spent and sessions per day as sort of interesting different extremes. I think for viewers, how many minutes you're watching is the metric. So this is basically the version, and the benefit of it is you're voting with your feet, you're really engaging. The downside is how high quality is it? I think for creators, the incentive with the time spent system is to make as long content as possible. To make long content. And so, we at YouTube, where I worked previously, one of the reasons gaming was such a big vertical is it was really cheap to make really long content, and all of our recommendation systems rewarded time spent. And so I think if you go in that direction, you're incentivizing content verticals where it's easy to watch a lot. And so this is sort of telling creators what to make sort of implicitly through this metric. Does that make sense?
Yeah. For the sake of time now, maybe we can prioritize which North Star metric you might go after.
Gotcha. Yeah. So maybe just to quickly talk about sessions per day. I think the difference versus the YouTube case is really extreme. If you think about Twitter, where you're coming back a lot, the incentive for the creator here is to make short things frequently. Like you want to have new content multiple times a day that people are coming back and they're coming to view this content. This will put the pressure on creators to making shorter content because it's more feasible. And then I think for viewers, you're going to have short sessions. I think this is a case where like there isn't necessarily a right or wrong. There's large companies to be built potentially around both of these. But the sessions per day feels much more aligned with where TikTok's advantages are. It started on mobile, which is a use case where you're not sitting on your couch for 5 hours in front of a TV. It started with short form content. And so I would definitely lean away from time spent. And then I think between DAUs and sessions per day, if I had to pick, this one is even more extreme around short content. I think that'd be interesting to explore more deeply. So I would pick sessions per day.
Okay. Can you think of some? So you've spoken about some risks. If we have a lower base, can you expand on some of these risks as to sessions per day as being the North Star?
Yeah, for sure. I think one of them is, if you have really short sessions, do you have opportunities to introduce people to new content? Introducing to new content. So if people are in a behavior loop where they come for literally 1 minute twice a day, how much opportunity do you have to introduce them to new content verticals, to new content creators? On the lower base piece in particular, I think there's a question on how accessible the content itself is. If you have really short, potentially really niche content, if you're driving all of your recommendation and discovery systems around sessions per day, do you have an incentive to have fewer people who use the product, but they use it really, really deeply, versus many more people, but they use it shallowly? And so if you pick this metric by itself, which is just total sessions a day, I think it's likely much easier to achieve this through a smaller, really dedicated power user base than a really broad base.
Okay. So I don't currently work at TikTok, but let's say that I do, and we're looking at, and let's say that we're partnered on this task, and I'm the data analyst, and I'm looking at the data that we have at TikTok, and I can tell you like, hey, David, you're the PM on my team. It looks like our users are, even though this is a short form mobile video app, it looks like our users are coming for longer sessions. Maybe they're spending 3 hours per day on TikTok. Does this change the North Star that you've picked?
I think there's an interesting question. So just to make sure I got that, users are coming for many hours a day. Should that change our priority, right?
Yeah, and I think this just changes some of the previous assumptions that we had, right? So let's assume that I'm the data analyst, I'm looking at our data, and this is what we have now.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's a question on strategy of, even if sessions per day was our target, it's possible the way to get there would be to optimize within a session for time spent. It's a little counterintuitive, but it might be the case. It's a hypothesis that we could try to test or validate through data, that whenever you come, the best thing to do to make you come back more times later today is actually to get you to watch longer. And so there's a world where this is actually a perfectly healthy leading indicator of coming back more frequently. And that there's actually not a trade-off between time spent and sessions. So I think that'd be like an open question, is maybe this is just a really powerful secondary driver that feeds up into time spent. I think maybe another question is this a highly correlated driver with sessions per day? I think another question is like, how does content changing to reflect current user behavior? For example, if creators understand that there's a lot of long sessions, are they building really long movies or stories or shows that happen to be split up into smaller chunks, but are designed to be watched together? And I think that's where the other part of the ecosystem might be starting to move, and it might shape what's possible, where if you run into a piece of content, but it really expects you to watch it for 20 minutes, it's actually just a show that's broken up. How accessible is that if you're just coming for 10 seconds?
Cool. Great. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up the mock interview?
We didn't really touch on the advertiser at all. I mean, I think there's another implied North Star here, which is revenue, which is, a totally reasonable thing to optimize for, and where, what pays the bills. But maybe that's for another interview question if we're out of time.
For sure. Well, thanks so much for this awesome mock interview, David. I'm wondering if you could just provide some self-reflection on how things you did well, things you might improve in.
For sure. Things I did well, I think I outlined the state space pretty well, having a range of different options, explaining what they were. I think I probably went too wide in this. It's a pretty big table for the short amount of time, and sort of had to rush through towards the end to pick the actual top choice of the metric. So I think I could have done a much faster breath. Here are 10 options. Now I'm going to drill into the one I think is best and why, and discuss countermetrics or other options I didn't pick. So I think that was a time management piece there. I think on the user types, you're totally right to call out other audiences. I should have done that more explicitly earlier. I think I had even titled this for viewer with thinking in my head I was going to add for creator or for advertiser later, and then just got sort of into the weeds here. So I think that was a really good call out.
For sure. So looking at my feedback that I have here, I think you did a great job starting with the mission, and I like how you dissected and picked the most critical part of their tagline or their mission to focus on, which is inspiring creativity and bringing joy. And especially during these times of COVID, it's I think what you did with sharing your screen, not only I guess like using Coda and showing off like how robust this document sharing thing is, but I mean, if for the viewers, if you're just using something like Google Docs, that's perfectly fine. And in fact, if you're interviewing for Google in your virtual on-site, they actually will supply links to allow you to type on a Google Doc. So that's something that you can expect. And I also liked how you checked in with me a lot. You were really engaging, and I can tell that, just overall, you seem like a pleasant person to work with. I think that's really important to come across in a PM interview. And you did a great job whenever you were listing your metrics. You gave some pros and cons for some of these metrics. My one piece of feedback would be to just focus more on the users, because this is a multi-sided marketplace where it's not just the viewers, but creators are also, and advertisers are also a big part of the TikTok ecosystem. And with that said, that concludes our mock interview today. And for the viewers, good luck with your upcoming PM mock interview.
Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons below to let us know that this video is valuable for you. And of course, check out hundreds more videos just like this at tryexponent.com. Thanks for watching, and good luck on your upcoming interview.